All right. So without further ado, I think we should get started with our first guest today. We're going to talk about capacity blocks, right? So
yeah. Let's
bring on Andy. Bring Andy on.
Hey, everyone.
Hello.
How's it going?
I'm doing great. I love the bright color.
Thank you. Yeah, my wife forced me to do a styling consult this Christmas. That was her gift to me. So now I have to change the colors of my wardrobe, etc.
And it looks like you got a haircut just for us and for our audience.
I actually did. I desperately needed it. Thank you for noticing.
Amazing. Oh, we feel so special.
Oh, that's awesome. And Art, condolences on your loss to Taylor Swift. I'm sure she would tell you if you were there to just shake it off. And maybe you should just bury the hatchet instead of your turtles. I don't know.
You know what? I'm just telling you, the turtle burying thing was surprisingly addictive. I spent 30 minutes on it.
How often do you bury turtles? Oh, you're talking about the research.
Yeah, apparently, according to my YouTube video, which is the height of accuracy, apparently you bury them just prior to winter in late fall. And then you take them out in the early spring in April or so. And so she
Their
told
heads
me
as well.
The whole thing, you bury the whole turtle. And then she told me that like I have to stay tuned and come back in April to watch it. So, you know, I don't know. I'm fascinated.
Reptilian hibernation is a fascinating topic. There's a Magic School Bus episode about it.
Without a human, how do they get buried anyway? I didn't even know that. I'm like, how do they get buried in like, you know, this woman has a shovel.
Yeah, right. Very slowly.
Absurd. I know a lot of people are excited about capacity blocks. So let's talk about capacity blocks.
Sweet.
So yeah, what is EC2 capacity blocks?
Yeah, well, I'm going to start with just a pretty rudimentary analogy. Capacity blocks is like a hotel booking. So if I want to go to Las Vegas for AWS reInvent and book a room, I don't show up the day reInvent starts and try to get a room. I'm going to make a reservation. And then once that reservation becomes available, I can check into the hotel. And then once the booking is done, I can check out. So that's essentially, I mean, it's not like the analogy isn't perfect, right? But it's essentially what a capacity block says. So if I want to access EC2 GPU instances like the P4D, which is based on the A100 GPU, or the P5 instance, which is based on the H100 GPU, I can go into the console. I can put in how long I want a reservation for, up to 14 days, and I can put in how many instances I want, and then I can do that up to 8 weeks in advance, and then I can reserve the capacity, and then when it becomes available, I can check into that capacity, and then when it's about to expire, I can stop my workload, or I can pause my workload, or stop my workload and then restart it later on a separate block. So after that 14-day time window expires. So it's like a hotel booking. It's a really easy way to go and get capacity.
So let's maybe unpack a little bit of what you're saying here. So first, for those that are out there that need a GPU, for anybody who doesn't know, GPU, graphics processing unit, is what it stands for, but it's used for a lot of different things. Just like CPU, like, you know, if you've ever purchased a PC that has Intel or AMD or something inside, GPU handles the graphics side of it, or that's originally what they were created for, right? Graphics. But today they handle a lot of other functions, including really large AI models, and they run large language models, which I think a lot of people have heard about today. So that makes them, let's say, in demand, shall we say?
Absolutely.
Right? People are really interested in using them. And a lot of us, a lot of customers out there here are game developers or other just developers, and you probably have done something or had a need or an interest in using the GPUs. So this is a feature, I think, to make it easier to make sure that you get a hold of the GPU, and it will kind of guarantee you, if you will, Andy, right, that you will get some GPU. You'll get a GPU. You'll explain and show how you can schedule the time for the GPU, just like a hotel reservation, right? You know, when I show up on the 16th in the evening of February, then with my reservation number, I've got it. It's there, and you know, it's available at whatever o'clock, 4 p.m. or something like that. Jillian, it looks like you're. I'm cutting you off, so I
no, go keep going.
Oh, okay.
You're riffing. I mean, I know EC2 is your jam right now, so you're just flowing.
I love EC2. I love EC2, and I love. I happen to like this feature quite a bit as well. Okay, so Andy, did I cover it reasonably well for us, for everybody out there?
Yeah, for the backdrop, sure. I mean, I've got a little bit more I could say about that, but I think a lot of people have heard of generative AI, and it really means a lot of different things. But the broad brush of generative AI is essentially we're finding a bunch of productivity applications to be able to apply these really complex large language models to. And like most companies are really looking to figure out how they can make use of generative AI to improve productivity, reduce their overall costs, and things like that. And to build a lot of those language models, to run a lot of the high memory inference workloads that they're going to do following building these models, they require GPUs to do that, and they require these really beefy A100 or the H100 GPUs.
By beefy, we mean processing and performance, right? That they provide. That's our technical. Yeah. Beefy is our technical definition.
Yeah, sorry. Yes, a very colloquial terminology. Yeah. I'm from the South. I don't know. Maybe I picked it up there. But yeah, so essentially, I've been working with customers trying to run on these graphical processing units, doing a variety of workloads for the past 6 or so years. Remember back in 2018 when autonomous vehicle development became just like a big thing, and companies like SoftBank and others were investing a lot of money into it. And there were a couple specific workloads that required massive scales of these GPU instances. Back then, it was the NVIDIA Volta 100, and then it eventually converted to the A100 and now the H100. But they're trying to do self-driving simulation to validate the hardware and the software that goes into the vehicles to autonomously drive, or they were trying to build the models that can control those vehicles with massive, neural network training. And so very complex workloads running on lots of relatively per unit higher priced GPU instances compared to CPU instances. And there were two things that we found out, and I don't want to be too verbose here, but there were two main things that we observed as we continued to work with our customers trying to scale to these massive degrees. On the one hand, capacity was always a question, even before COVID and the supply chain crunch that we're all aware of. GPUs are, there's not as many of them, and there's a lot of demand for them for these specific complex workloads. And so when customers are trying to go out and get GPUs, it's not as easy as just scaling up and scaling down with CPU instances. So one, there was a capacity question. Can I get the capacity I need to run these really big high-scale workloads? And the second piece of it is a cost question. So these are higher per unit cost instances, or GPU, higher per unit cost hardware. How do I get all of this hard to get capacity at the right price point with a tolerable total cost of ownership? And so we continue to see that. And what we're seeing nowadays is when a customer goes out and tries to get an A100 GPU or an H100 GPU from a data center provider, another cloud provider, or something like that, there are really two options they're faced with. The first is, and I know this is verbose, so I just want to make sure that we're setting the context here. So the first option they're faced with is multi-year contracts. But these are, oftentimes project-based. You need it for a week. Like I talked to a customer a couple of weeks ago, they need it 1 week per month, but monthly. So if you get a multi-year contract situated, and then you have the capacity for let's say 3 years, but you're only using it, 1 week per month, there's a lot of unused capacity that you're paying for. And so on the one hand, you've got multi-year contracts. On the other, if you don't want to enter into a multi-year contract, you have to get in line. You have to, if you go to a data center provider and you ask for 8 H100 GPU instances, you are told oftentimes, yeah, we can get that for you at a decent price point in March, April, May timeframe. So we built capacity blocks to kind of solve for that capacity question challenge and the cost or the total cost of ownership question challenge. And we do that by creating kind of a confined block that a customer can tailor to their workload or usage patterns. And they can reserve that, so they'll have the predictability, they'll have that assurance that they're going to have the capacity when they need it, and for the workload patterns that they need it for. Does that make sense?
Okay. It makes sense.
Long-winded. Yeah, sorry about that.
No. I think that sometimes a long-winded explanation is needed. So what I think we should do is we should bring up the demo and get started. And while we do that, maybe Jillian and I can field a couple of the questions that have come in. Someone asked, you brought up a question about. You mentioned about autonomous driving vehicles and that sort of thing. I want to be clear, it's an example, and people could potentially be using GPUs to do autonomous driving vehicle for either autonomous vehicles, EV cars, or what have you that are out there. So this is one possible use case for GPUs. amongst many that are out there.
Plethora of applications, yeah.
Right. And someone else also asked, can we use capacity blocks for generative AI pipelines? And so capacity blocks, I want to be clear, is a little bit different than the actual GPUs. So capacity blocks that we're talking about today is the planning, is an access to the GPUs. So you would use the GPUs that you reserved via capacity blocks for your Gen AI pipeline.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and to address that question a little bit more fully, it really comes down to your usage pattern, and there's not necessarily broad consistency for how a given company trains their models. I talked to one the other day who trains their models 1 week per month, and that's all they need. There are others who they might have a 3-month training job, and so we work. And I would encourage anyone to reach out to their account team or reach out to me on I'm on LinkedIn and ask the question: does my usage pattern fit capacity blocks, or is there a better way to do that? So happy to address those questions, but I guess I'll go ahead and share my screen now.
Yeah, we're ready for a demo.
Wonderful.
Are you ready to share? So
absolutely. Can y'all see my screen?
No, not yet. 1 second.
Okay.
Let me bring it up for you. There you go. Oh, wait.
Okay.
Now
Whoopsie.
There we
go.
Yay!
Yeah. Okay. Sorry, it took a while. It went at a turtle space. Let's see here. Sorry. I'm in the console right now. I actually, just as a preface, I love sharing this because I've worked in the space, talked to customers about the best ways to get GPU graphical processing unit capacity for 5 or 6 years, since 2018. And it's not always like a simple, easy process to go and just get capacity tomorrow for exactly what you need. And so I love sharing this because it's a relatively simple process. I'll show you in the management console today, but you can do this via API, the command line interface, etc. So when you go into the console, first you'll go into the EC2 dashboard. And you can see on the side here, kind of a collection of options. At the bottom here, you see capacity reservations. A capacity block is a capacity reservation. And there are 2 types of capacity reservations listed here: on-demand capacity reservation. And what is that? An on-demand capacity reservation is something that you would get to reserve capacity in a specific availability zone, kind of a cluster of data centers, that with a given OS that you can hold until you no longer need it. And then you have EC2 capacity blocks as an option here. So I'm going to go through the process of how you would create or purchase a capacity block for ML or machine learning. So this is how you search for a capacity block. You come in here, you have 2 options. You have the P4D 24 extra large, and you have the P5 48 extra large. So I'll go ahead and select that.
So when you come in here, you have So when you come in here, you have a choice of 2 different types of GPUs, right? So the P5 or the P4. And then you have, I think, can you go to the drop down again? I think you had 2 or 3 sizes that a user can choose from, right?
There are 2 sizes. There's 1 size for each series.
So
the P4, yeah.
Okay. So if you have a P4D, you get a 24XL. You choose a 24XL. Or if you're interested in a P5, you get a 48XL, right?
Right. And the P4 is an A100, and the P5 is an H100.
Okay. All right. Yep. So 2 different type of GPUs, the H100 versus the A100. So A as in Apple and H as in Harry. I think H is the Grace Hopper.
I'll say H from now on. Yeah.
H. Yeah, right. H is the Grace Hopper one. So I think just a little trivia. People should take a look at Grace Hopper. Do a Google on Grace Hopper. She is a phenomenal human being, or was, I should say. Take a look. We'll drop that. We'll encourage you to do that offline. Otherwise, I'll be here all day talking about her. Anyhow, in the meantime, so we've chosen a P5 48XL.
And I'll go ahead and use the example from a company that I talked to a couple weeks back. So what they needed was 1 week per month. They needed 8 GPU, or the equivalent of 8 P5 instances. So I'll select 8, and they needed it for 1 week. So I'll go up here and put 7. You can put your date range here. Like I said, you can schedule out as far as 8 weeks, or you can schedule out as soon as tomorrow, depending on if there's availability or capacity. So I'll leave that as is, and then you select Find Capacity Block. And we will search for the lowest price capacity block and the one that comes in the soonest. So as you can see, we can get 7 days worth of 8 P5 48 extra large instances, which contain 8 H100 GPUs in it, by February 22nd, and you can run that for the full week. The price is listed here. You can see the price breakdown, the effective hourly rate, which, and I want to make a point on this. So pricing is dynamic. It's very similar to EC2 Spot, which is based on supply and demand. So it can go up and down depending on demand. Right now, it's sitting at about 20 to 25% below the cost of on demand. So once you see the price, you're comfortable with the price, you can go next. I'm going to skip the tagging process. You have a review.
I just want to mention as you do this, Andy, someone had a question about the pricing. So just so you're aware, the pricing is displayed right away as you go through the reservation process. So Shan 2024, we display the pricing right there. So just, excuse me, just to let folks know as well. And we had a couple of other people who had some questions for you as well. Are there any limitations to how long that somebody can use an EC2 capacity blocks? Could they reserve it for 25 days, 50 days? You know?
Great question. So you can reserve a capacity block anywhere from 1 day to 14 days.
Okay. So you can reserve it for 1 day to 14 days, but can you have multiple reservations? So if at the end of the 14 days, can I have another reservation for another 14 days?
Yes, you can have another reservation. And we see that commonly where a customer might have multiple workloads that they have to run consistently. One example, we have a customer who wants to use it just for 1 day. I think it's a few instances, 1 day per week. And so they'll schedule for 1 week and then the next and then the next and then the next. And it's a great way for them to not have to buy and hold capacity in perpetuity for something that runs 1 day per week. It's a great way to save on total cost.
And one other note, someone asked the cost question. I believe once you commit to the reservation, you're also committed even if you don't use it, right? So that's the reason to be, I don't know if stingy is the right word, but the reason
be picky,
to be picky about your usage. So if you think you're going to need 6 days worth of capacity, don't reserve 7 because you're going to have to pay for that extra day's worth of usage. Right.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's a great point.
One question I have
go for it.
It's one question I have that I'm sure might be on some people's minds is there's a reason why it's called a capacity block and not just spinning up like 1 or like 2 instances. So what makes it like a block? Like
that's a great question. So and that actually gives me the opportunity to separate this from other ways to get GPUs, right? So a capacity block is essentially confined to a given duration. So like I said, 1 to 14 days, a given number of instances. You select the quantity, and I just showed you that I'm selecting 8 for 7 days, right? So it's a duration, a quantity of instances, and then for a given date range with a start date and an end date. That's kind of how we would define a block. So a block is different than, say, your traditional on-demand, where you scale up and scale down based on your needs. And then with GPU instances specifically, what you would do is, request to get capacity for some number of GPU instances, and then in the form of an on-demand capacity reservation that I explained a few minutes ago. And then what you would do with that is typically a customer would get one of those, and then they would hold it probably longer term to fulfill their needs. They might bin pack it if they can be efficient in doing that. Bin packing meaning you put more workloads into it than one that might underutilize it. And then we cover that with, they might cover that with one of our cost models. It's called savings plans. And there was an option historically called reserved instances as well, where they would get upwards of a 70+ % discount on the cost, off the cost of the on-demand cost of the instance that they're holding. So that was a lot of information, but essentially capacity blocks fits some workloads, and the on-demand capacity reservation fits more of those longer running workloads that you're going to require for longer periods of time.
I would also encourage folks who have questions about the cost of and how to manage things like reservations on demand and reserved instances. We had some sessions at reInvent, which is our big conference that happens in November, and they're available for free online. And so you can take a look at YouTube in the AWS Events channel. And within the AWS Events channel, there are a couple of sessions there that talk about capacity. And I would actually encourage you to take a look at it. One is like cost capacity, choose 3. That one was particularly good. So I would encourage you to take a look over there. You can learn a lot more detail about how to reserve instances in general, how to do cost savings, take advantage of things like Spot as well. Okay, let's finish the demo here because we've obviously gotten super excited here.
Yeah, no, it's great. I love it. So I'll wrap through the demo. I didn't add any tags. You can see the price breakdown, the start and end date, the availability zone you're going to be in, and everything like that. Make sure that this is the exact right thing, and then you can click purchase. And just to make sure, absolutely sure you're okay with this, you have to type confirm here. Now I've already got an active capacity block, so I'm going to cancel instead of confirm, and then cancel that. And I'll come down here. You can do this by going through the instances as well, but I'll just, for the sake of time, you can see that I have.
We were going to watch you put in your personal credit card. I was getting my pen and paper ready.
Yeah, my limit's really high too. That's a bummer for you.
Obviously, if you're going to purchase $99,000 worth of capacity blocks,
get those points. You know,
that's right. Jillian, I think we can all go on a family trip together after purchasing some capacity blocks.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So just real briefly here. No, it's okay. So I'll just click into the capacity reservation that's active. Actually, I'll go back. So you can see that I have one scheduled. So once I purchase a capacity block, it flips into pending state. Once the purchase goes through, it flips to scheduled state, and it will maintain as scheduled up until the block becomes available. So if I book for Monday, it will become active on Monday, but scheduled until Monday. So I'll click into the active one. It became active today. And you can see start date, end date, 1 day, 1 instance, because I don't want to spend too much of Amazon's money. And we'll go ahead and launch this instance real quickly. There's a couple things you want to be clued into, because there's a lot of information on the page, but there are a few specific capacity block ones that you need to be aware of. Live demo CB, we'll just go with that. We actually have deep learning Amazon machine images. This is the image that with which you would launch any AWS instance. So deep learning, let's go and use the first one that pops up. And then you want to choose the instance type. This is a P5 instance type. So P5 is one P5 type. I will go ahead and proceed without a key pair, which it says is not recommended, but this is a demo. And then you scroll all the way down and you want to open up the advanced details section and scroll part of the way through, and you will see right here, purchasing options. So capacity blocks, EC2 Spot, those are types of purchase options. So click on capacity blocks, target by ID. So every capacity reservation, whether it's an on-demand capacity reservation or capacity block, is denoted by a capacity reservation ID. You might hear it referred to as CRID. So, and then I will select the one based on the start date, which is today. And I'll select that one. And then I'll scroll all the way down and I'll just launch the instance. Success.
Okay, so you made the reservation, but then you still had to go in and launch the actual instance during the window.
Right, because it's a reservation. It's not an actively running instance.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Good. So you have to make the reservation. You have to make the reservation, then you launch it. I just want to say this is all a lot faster than burying a turtle as well. I thought I would throw that out there.
Poor turtle.
Of course, all of this side commentary goes at it makes us go at a turtle's pace, which is a bummer. Just kidding.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, no.
My finger hurts too. I've got a splinter in there. Oh, sorry.
Is it from burying a turtle?
I'm gonna plead the fifth on that one.
All right. I'm gonna go watch a video on this later. All right.
So I've got a question. So I'm sure people are probably, they saw all of this. They saw you make a reservation, and so some people might be wondering, like, any recommendations on how far out someone should look to make a reservation?
Yeah, well, I mean, if you go back to the hotel analogy, and we're thinking a busy week in Las Vegas, the sooner the better. You can book out as far as 8 weeks, so you're not looking out 20 weeks. But if you can look out 8 weeks, the better you plan for this, the more likely you are to get the capacity that you need.
Cool.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So someone asked, when you launch the reservation, does it do it all? I think we just answered this by walking through it. So you launch, you create the reservation, and then after, when it's time to actually use the reservation, you go back in to launch the instance, and you actually have to go launch the instance on the day of. Is what is there? Hopefully, I answered.
No, that's a great thing to bring up, actually. So you can do it manually, like I did it, but we have a number of scheduling and orchestration options. So auto scaling groups, EC2 fleet, this actually supports Elastic Kubernetes service called EKS,
cool.
self-managed node groups. And recently we launched with EC2 parallel cluster, which is kind of a high performance computing orchestration layer. So very simplistically put, but for the sake of time. So there are a number of ways to automate this process using what we call launch templates. And I'm happy to answer more questions about that offline if that's helpful. So please reach out to me, reach out to your account team, and we can deal with that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I was going to say shout out to Cloud Builder, who posted some links in the chat about capacity blocks. Art was talking about some sessions from reInvent, and Cloud Builder posted a YouTube video about some of the sessions that Art was talking about.
Wow, even better, even better. Loving this. So I want to thank Andy for joining us today here. I want to do a quick plug to everybody, asking everyone if they could please come back and take the survey that we have. We want to encourage everybody to take a look at the survey. The first 20 people that take the survey this week will get $20 in AWS credits, which is pretty big, which is larger than it may actually seem. You get a lot more hours than you may think. GPUs aside, I think we saw some high costs there. But those of you who are out there and using Amazon EC2, you can do streaming on that. And we have instances that are in a lot of different price tiers and price points. So take a look, and we highly encourage you to try that out. And then for anyone else who also just joined us, I'm Art Baudo, and Jillian and I are hosting this week's AWS OnAir episode. And our first guest up was Andy here. We talked about ML capacity blocks. And I want to thank you, Andy, for joining us today. And we're going to roll to our next demo. But before we do, I'm going to take a chance. And so first, I'm going to say thanks, Andy, for joining us.
Absolutely.
So catch you later.
Bye.